The Cornish in South America. The significance of Cornish migration to South America lay not in numbers. Far fewer migrated there than to North America, South Australia, and so-called England and Wales, or South Africa, but in the fact that the mines of South America were among the first to attract significant Cornish labor right into the 1930s. Many of the defining features of overseas Cornish migration during what has been dubbed the Great Migration 1815 to 1920 have their roots in South America. These include the system of home pay remittances that were to become so important to the Cornish economy in the late 19th century, the rise of transnational communities, and more importantly, the emergence of the reputation of Cornish miners, also known as Cousin Jacks, as the world's finest hard rock miners. Yet little research has focused on this important part of Cornish history. In the early 19th century, Cornwall, the engine house of the British Industrial Revolution, running you to the ground, was world-renowned for the sophistication its mining industry powered by high-pressure steam engines, and its copper mines were booming. By contrast, the once great silver and gold mines across South America lay in dereliction, a combination of years of undercapitalization and engineering problems compounded by civil war, resulting in depopulation of mining centers and abandonment of mine properties. The 1820s marked the beginnings of significant British capital investment in South America mining and led to the migration of thousands of Cornishmen and their families. Remember, they was calling you peasants, and they said they picked the best peasants to go over here and do this dirt work. So we're studying the areas around South America. Pachuca, RealDel Monte. In Cornwall, the names of RealDel Monte and Pachuca were very well known. Houses named Hidalgo and Acosta existed in the high streets of Camborne and Redruth, were enriched by remittances that flowed back from these twin South American settlements, just as Pachuca benefited from money invested there by expatriate Cornish. Local newspapers in sending and receiving communities carried items of news from foreign papers. The distinctive smell of saffron often perfumed the post office at Pachuca. It took over a year to cross the swamps and mountains by foot and mule to get to RealDel Monte. John Rule from Camborne led the first Cornish communities to create the new mining settlement there. He also helped the Cornish migrants to understand their new surroundings. South America was still a very new country in the 1830s, and they had to live and work under the threat of civil war and diseases, such as cholera. So oppression began in the South, and we was being worked to the dirt, and then people started having a revolution, and it was called Viva Madero. The attitude of the American government in the present situation should be one of sincere friendship and consideration towards our sister republic, and we regret that the possibility of a revolution should have existed. But if people are being oppressed, it's their right to take out a tyrant government. And they stated publicly and open that British had their investments in South America, and they was running the miners to death. We shall insist that the territorial integrity of the Mexican Republic shall never be jeopardized either by the insurrections or the connivance of a foreign power. But they are foreign powers on the American continent. They're European. Quiet reigns in captured city. Federals joined rebels in shouting Viva Madero. Riots were fierce. Mobs thronged through the streets of Pachuca and destroyed everything in their path. Federal governments is banished. Pachuca, Hidalgo, May 16, 1911. This city, the capital of the state of Hidalgo, which was in the hands of rioters who broke nearly every window in town last night, looting stores and saloons, was quiet tonight under the guardianship of Gabriel Hernandez and 150 of his men, who marched in this morning. The federal garrisons of 80 areas joined the rebel forces without firing a shot and marched around the plaza with their new comrades, keeping step to the blare of the battered cornet and shouting Viva Madero with great enthusiasm. General Hernandez stated to newspapermen that his scouts had captured 20 fugitives whom they had found in the hills with loot and executed them. No one within the city was killed. Pachuca is 60 miles from the city of Mexico, and its occupation by a rebel force for that reason is regarded as significant in the light of a statement by Ambrosio Figueroa that he is preparing to march on the national capital. Hernandez says that Figueroa Madero's force numbered 3,000 fully equipped men, and that they have 5 railroad trains ready to assist in the movement of the troops. Just colonizing, man. A detachment of federal soldiers was started from Mexico City for this point this morning, but the train was stopped at Tulo by orders from the War Office. It is thought the government wishes to avoid bloodshed at this time, when they believe that there is an excellent chance to restore peace by means of diplomatic means, and that's how it's supposed to be with all nations. The regular passenger train, which leaves the city of Mexico at 7 o'clock and arrives here at 10:30, was stopped just outside of the town in search for soldiers. None was found, but the train was held here. Conductor Crutcher not being allowed to make the return trip. Rioting last night started when Colonel Hernandez ordered the federal government to leave the city. A score of boys excited by the news began breaking windows. Many men of the considerable number of women joined in the demonstration. Prisoners was released from the reform school, the city locked up, and the state penitentiary. And all 500 prisoners were given their freedom and the records of their cases destroyed. Man, think about if that happened in North America. Saloons were raided for pulp, and the inflamed mob visited every section of the city, shooting and throwing stones and compelling everyone to cry, "Viva Madero." Among the places stoned was the Methodist church and school. Again, among the places stoned was the Methodist church and school, because the Christian gnosis is used to colonize not only the land but your mind. The interior of the Bank of Hidalgo, a handsome new structure, was wrecked by dynamite fire, but the 400,000 pesos deposited remained safe in the undamaged vault. All the records of the bank were destroyed. It was not known tonight whether the mining records are safe. All other public documents were burned. The rioting continued until midnight. A pawn shop hated for the usurious rate of interest charged was stripped of all its content. True indeed. You catch someone when they down and you give them a low price, man, indeed. Absolutely nothing was left except the clothing which the proprietor and his wife wore. Before leaving, the raiders set the place on fire. It is still smoldering tonight. Among the looted stores was one voted to the sale of hats. The looters furnished themselves with new headgear, but in many cases this was their undoing, as the scouts sent out today invariably investigated the possessions of anyone found wearing a new hat. Another object of animosity was the beautiful marble clock tower, erected during the centennial in the plaza. Gossip in the town has it that a large portion of the money appropriated by the government for this memorial was diverted to certain private purposes. The clock, which has 4 dials, was too high to be hit by stones, but was made the target of a multitude of shots. Owing to the experience of the marksman or to the effect of the pulque, the big timepiece was hit only 3 times. Windows of the National Bank were broken and the furniture thrown into the streets. The population of this city is 38,000, 500 of whom are foreigners. The better class of citizens worked for hours to quell the fury of the mob, and by midnight, by a display of arms and great firmness, had driven most of the malcontents into the hills. Some of these were found today in drunken stupor with their loot about them. They were shot. White flags were hanging from nearly every window when Colonel Hernandez arrived this morning. One miner had hung out a curtain shade of dingy blue. He declared that it was the Cornish flag and that he would see it respected or someone would get hurt. The rebel leaders posted guards where needed and sent patrols about the streets to preserve order. In this he was assisted by the other areas. John Quinn Gonzalez, a lawyer, was chosen governor. He issued a statement in which he said that he had no wish for the office, but as the federal government was unable to preserve order, he felt it his duty to accept the position. See, you have to think. We was assisting in the colonization by assisting in digging up all the resources, whether it's gold, silver, tin, or salt, or anything. But they worked us down to our bones. So when you go and you look at the Hallstatt culture or read the book, The White Cargo, different things like that, we've always been in the mines and we always been doing dirt work. But the main way into the Americas was through Cuba, through the Moors Castle, through Havana, Cuba, because that was the main canal there. That was the main reason why we was even down in South America, coming through the canal of the Moors Gate. Then you have Montezuma, who was known to have the Moorish headdress, and it's in the museum from Montezuma. And I bring that up because the Moors are always been all around the globe, but they've always helped us. Even in Cornwall, that was the Moorish Empire, all the way over here, which was the Moorish Empire. We was always helped. Madero was elected president in November of 1911, and less than 2 years later, he was dead. The story of his ouster is one of betrayal and backstabbing by Huerta, who conspired with the U.S. ambassador to stage a coup, and that's what they did in the North Americas too. Huerta had Madero imprisoned, along with his loyal vice president, Jose Maria Pino Suarez. They were shot and killed while being transported to Lucumberry Prison in northeastern part of today's Mexico City, ostensibly for their own protection. Guards claim they tried to escape, but many people believe Huerta had ordered the assassination. So earlier in the reading, we had United States saying they didn't wish to intervene in foreign affairs, but now they're staging a coup. And that's exactly why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali went to Cuba and set everything straight too. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.